Scorpio, listen to me for a moment with the part of you that feels more than it understands. Something in your life is cracking right now, or about to crack. You can feel it in the way your chest tightens for no clear reason, in the way your thoughts keep circling the same situation, the same person, the same place, that no longer feels like home, but still feels like a prison. You don't know how to leave. You may not have the words for it yet, but your soul knows a breaking has begun. And before you swipe away, before you tell yourself you're too tired for another heavy message, let me tell you the one truth that might keep you here. This breaking is not punishment. It is protection. It is God removing what cannot go with you into the life you were actually born to live. You've felt it, haven't you? That uneasy silence in your spirit, the way conversations that used to flow now feel strained, the way a job, a relationship, a habit, or even a version of yourself that once felt safe now feels tight, small, suffocating. You keep saying something is off, but you can't fully explain why. You tell yourself you're overreacting, too sensitive, too intense, too dramatic. You try to calm your own intuition down, as if your inner knowing were an enemy instead of your oldest ally. And yet the more you try to ignore that quiet alarm, the louder it becomes. This is not random anxiety, Scorpio. This is your spirit being warned ahead of time that God is about to remove something or someone from your path, not to hurt you, but because it simply cannot exist in the future He's building with you. You're a master of holding on. You grip people, dreams, situations, and timelines with a loyalty that is almost supernatural. When you decide something matters, you give it everything. Your mind, your body, your energy, your forgiveness, your late nights, your last chances. You have stayed where others would have walked away. You have tried when others would have given up. You have loved through disappointment, betrayal, and silence. And because of that, the thought of losing what you've invested so much into feels almost unbearable. You tell yourself, if I just try harder, if I just fix myself, if I just wait a little longer, it will work. But deep down, you already know. You're keeping alive something that's quietly killing you. That's where God steps in. Not because you're weak, but because you're too loyal to save yourself in time. Sometimes divine protection doesn't look like a gentle hand. Sometimes it looks like doors suddenly slamming shut. Messages going unanswered, opportunities falling through, people growing distant with no obvious explanation, plans failing no matter how carefully you craft them. You look at the wreckage and think, what did I do wrong? But there is a deeper question beneath that pain. What was I refusing to release, even after every sign told me it was time to let go? This breaking, as cruel as it may feel in the moment, is God doing for you what you could not bring yourself to do on your own, separating you from what was never meant to carry the weight of your destiny. You are entering a season where half-heartedness cannot follow you, relationships built on your sacrifice and their convenience cannot follow you. Environments that require you to shrink to fit in cannot follow you. The old survival strategies, over-giving, over-explaining, overworking yourself just to be tolerated, cannot follow you. God is not just rearranging your outer world. He is stripping off layers of identity you built around pain, abandonment, and fear. That's why this hurts so much. You're not only losing what's outside of you, you're watching entire versions of yourself die. The version who believed love must always hurt. The version who worked for crumbs and called it a feast. The version who thought they had to carry everyone else just to be worthy of being kept. There's a part of you right now that's bargaining. If I fix myself, maybe they'll stay. If I keep my head down, maybe they'll promote me. If I give more, maybe they'll finally see what I bring. If I'm more patient, more kind, more understanding, maybe this won't have to end. But Scorpio, how many times have you already reshaped yourself around people who never once tried to meet you halfway? How many times have you forgiven behavior that would have broken someone else completely? How many times have you told yourself it's not that bad, while your nervous system was screaming that it is? The breaking you are sensing now is not about you failing. It is about you outgrowing what refuses to grow with you. When God removes what can't go with you, it often feels like chaos at first. Long-standing connections start to feel unstable. Secrets begin to surface. Misunderstandings increase. People reveal sides of themselves you didn't want to see. You might feel misunderstood, blamed, or even painted as the problem because you're no longer willing to play your old role quietly. But underneath all of that, something sacred is happening. Your spirit is no longer willing to agree to contracts that require your self-betrayal. The part of you that used to say, "It's fine, I'll just endure," is finally saying, "No, my soul costs more than this." When that shift happens on the inside, the outside world must respond, often through endings that feel harsh, but are actually merciful. You are allowed to grieve what God removes, even if it was never truly good for you. You are allowed to cry over the loss of people who didn't know how to love you. You are allowed to miss the comfort of familiarity, even when you know that comfort was built on your pain. You're allowed to feel angry, confused, abandoned, and heartbroken. None of that makes you weak. It makes you human. Think of this season as walking through the stages of a spiritual grief. The denial when you keep trying to fix what's already over. The anger when you wonder why life keeps taking from you. The bargaining when you promise to change anything just to avoid the loss, the heaviness, when you can't see anything good on the other side. And then, eventually, the acceptance that doesn't erase the pain, but anchors you in the truth that this had to happen for you to finally be free. Freedom doesn't always arrive wrapped in joy. Sometimes it arrives in the shape of a goodbye you didn't ask for. The person whose presence once felt like oxygen slowly becomes the one your soul can't breathe around anymore. The job you begged God to give you becomes the place that drains your spirit dry. The city that once carried your dreams now feels too small to hold who you're becoming. When these changes start, it's tempting to cling even harder, to fight the breaking, to try to tape back together what is clearly splitting at the seams. But every time you force what God is trying to release, you delay your own healing. You stretch out the pain. You prolong the storm. Trusting this breaking means whispering through your tears, "I don't understand this, but I accept that this ending is part of my protection." Scorpio, your heart has been a battlefield for a long time. You've carried stories you never told, wounds you never named, responsibilities that were never truly yours. You learned early how to be strong, how to read a room, how to sense danger before it hits, how to survive in silence. That strength kept you alive, but it also built walls so high that love had to climb just to find a way in. This season, God is not just removing external burdens, He's piercing those walls. That's why everything feels raw. That's why your emotions are closer to the surface. That's why old memories are resurfacing without warning. The breaking is not only happening in your life, it's happening in your armor. What if this time, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you asked, "What is this breaking protecting me from that I cannot see yet?" Perhaps it's saving you from spending years more in a relationship that would never grow past the same cycle of promises and disappointments. Maybe it's saving you from building a future on the shaky ground of someone else's inconsistency. Maybe it's steering you away from a path where your gifts would be used but never honored, where your loyalty would be exploited but never cherished. Sometimes the greater wound isn't the pain you feel now, but the quiet, slow erosion of your soul that would have continued if nothing changed. God sees the version of you you still doubt is possible, the you who doesn't settle for half love, the you who doesn't abandon yourself to keep others comfortable, the you who doesn't need to control every outcome because you finally trust that you're not alone in this life, the you who knows their worth without constantly proving it. This breaking is the bridge between who you were forced to be and who you were always meant to become. Bridges are built from pressure, from weight, from force, but they are what allow you to cross into new territory. Right now, you are in the middle of that crossing. The land behind you is burning. The land ahead is still hidden by fog. All you can do is keep walking, one step, one breath, one prayer at a time. There will be nights when you feel like nothing makes sense, nights when you'll want to go back to what hurt you simply because at least you understood that pain, nights when your chest will ache for the sound of a familiar voice, the routine of an old life, the illusion of control you used to have. On those nights, remember this: going back will not erase the breaking, it will only bury it deeper, and anything buried alive eventually rises louder and more disruptive. You are being invited to face now what you would eventually be forced to face later. That is mercy, even if it doesn't feel like it. Let yourself be honest about how this feels. You don't have to be the strong one all the time. You don't have to perform a quick healing just because others are uncomfortable with your grief. You don't have to label yourself spiritually evolved and pretend this doesn't hurt. Real strength is not acting like the breaking doesn't affect you. Real strength is allowing the breaking to transform you instead of harden you. Cry if you need to. Journal the words you can't say out loud. Sit in silence when you're too tired to pray. God hears what your tears are saying, even when your lips are still. As the dust slowly settles, you will start to notice tiny signs of life returning. A small moment of peace that appears out of nowhere. A conversation that feels genuinely mutual. An idea that lights you up in a way you haven't felt in months. A day where you laugh and suddenly realize the heaviness has shifted, even just a little. These are not accidents. These are the early signs that what was removed is making space for what aligns. You will slowly see that as certain people, habits, and patterns move out, room is created for friendships that see you, opportunities that honor you, callings that actually fit you. The breaking always creates space, and space is where new blessings can finally land. One day you will look back on this exact season and whisper, if that had not ended, I would still be there. I would still be shrinking. I would still be begging for the bare minimum. I would still be questioning my worth. I would still be living someone else's version of my life. You will thank God, not just for what He gave you, but for what He refused to let you keep. Because some things are too heavy for where you're going. Some connections are too fragile for the altitude you're about to rise into. Some patterns are too small for the size of the soul you're finally allowing yourself to be. This message is not a guarantee of a specific outcome or a prediction carved in stone. It is more like a mirror held up to the inner landscape of a Scorpio soul in transition. A reflection of one possible path of healing. A story whispered for those whose hearts recognize themselves in these words. If it resonates with you, Let it be a gentle confirmation, a spiritual perspective, not a substitute for your own inner wisdom, your faith, or any guidance you may receive from trusted professionals in your life. If it doesn't resonate, allow it to pass, like a cloud moving across your sky, knowing that not every narrative is meant for every spirit. What truly matters is that you remember you are never powerless in your own story, and that the greatest shifts begin from within. So, Scorpio, as you stand in the middle of this breaking, place a hand over your heart for a moment and feel its stubborn, sacred rhythm. It is still beating, even under the weight of everything you've lost and everything you're afraid to face. That heartbeat is proof that your story is not over. Trust that what is being taken from you now is not your future, but your limitation. Trust that what is crumbling is not your destiny, but the cage around it. Trust that the same God who allows the breaking also holds every shattered piece, ready to shape them into a version of you who walks lighter, loves wiser, and lives truer. Your heart may ache, your mind may question, your body may shake, but your spirit already knows. Anything that cannot walk beside you into your next chapter is being removed so that you don't have to keep sacrificing yourself just to carry it. Trust this breaking, Scorpio. It's not the end. It's the doorway.